Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Chiranjit Mishra and today we are going to discuss the news items of News Today April 22nd. There are 3 important main news and 11 also in the news. Let's quickly go through the news titles. After that we'll discuss each news item one by one. The first main news is about global electricity trends as per a report which has been released by an international research body which shows a rising clean energy growth. The second main news is about growing need for multilateral governance in outer space. The third main news is about India's food grain stocks, which has experienced a surge beyond the buffer norms, which is a good piece of news. And let's quickly go through the quick updates. The first is about new digital payments e-mandate framework as released by the RBI, framework 2026. The second quick update is about 2 Indian landfills which featured among top methane emitters, which is not a very good or pleasant piece of news. The third one is about Curiosity rover, which is moving around on the surface of the planet Mars. It found new organic molecules. The third one is about Salween river, which flows through China, Myanmar and Thailand, and it is experiencing arsenic contamination. The third one is about Google Earth Day doodle, which shows global landscapes. It's a piece of neutral news, you can say. Then Tadoba Tiger Reserve model for balancing tiger growth and human conflict. This model can be replicated in other tiger reserves. Then Supreme Court's order regarding disabled-friendly prison reforms. Next quick update is about the tribute paid by Honorable Prime Minister to Adi Shankaracharya. Next, India's palm oil imports, and the imports are going to rise, taking into consideration the global uncertainties. Next, ammonia rule, the new ammonia rule, because most of the ammonia will now be directed towards fertilizer manufacturing and not pharmaceuticals. So it may hurt pharma production. And last quick update is about Ministry of Defense deal, which is related to landmine clearing devices, plows. Okay. So now let's quickly start with our first main news, which is Global Electricity Review 2026 report. Okay. So as you all know, that India produces nearly 70 to 75% of its electricity using coal. Okay, 70 to 75%. But if you look at the global picture, the picture is slightly better. And that may actually make look India slightly underperforming because the global share is 30%. That means globally 30% of the electricity produced is from coal. The 70% is from gas, other sources of renewables, and mostly renewables. So renewables has actually surpassed the coal percentage. But in India's case, the picture is slightly dismal. But we are working really hard. So let's quickly go through the findings of the report. Now, this particular news is definitely from GS paper 3. You may think that this is economics. Had it been electricity sector in India, then we could have directly put it under economics. This is related to environment because we are considering generation of electricity as regards renewables. As you know, India has done well in increasing its percentage of renewables in the total energy mix. Okay, so India's total installed power capacity is 520 gigawatts. This is the theoretical capacity, and I have been repeating this number again and again. It should get etched on your head. Okay. 520 gigawatts of energy can be produced, maximum energy, theoretical capacity, okay? And out of that 51%, some reports said 52, 53, but 51%, that means more than 50% is ascribed to renewables, okay? Now the picture looks really good. This is the theoretical capacity, okay? Every year we produce energy in terawatts, okay? 1 terawatt is equal to 1000 gigawatts, okay? Because using that capacity, you can try to produce electricity again and again. But whatever electricity is produced is close to 1800 terawatts. Okay, India is the third largest producer of electricity. At number 1 sits China. These are important facts. Please note down. Number 2, US. Yes, China produces more electricity than the United States. And number 3, India. But the best thing about the United States is that they use very less coal. Only 16% of the total electricity produced in United States, 16% is from coal. In India's case, it is 70 to 75%. Let's say 72.5%, take an average, okay? Average of the range. In China's case, it is 60%. So you can say, what are the signs or symbols related to a developing economy? With our reliance or dependence upon coal. United States uses only 16% of, United States produces 16% of its electricity generated using coal. Okay, so let's take a look at India's performance. Theoretical capacity is good enough, but whatever power is produced, actually produced in a year, 1800 terawatts, of that 70 to 75%. That means you can say it's close to 130 terawatt. Sorry, 1300 terawatt is from coal, which is not a good thing. But India is actually pushing forward its different schemes and missions related to increasing the number of renewables. That is what the report says. Okay, so these are important points you can start your answers with. Now let's see how India is trying to increase its percentage of renewables and how the entire globe is trying. The report has been released by Ember, and the name of the report is Global Electricity Review, not Global Energy Review. Electricity is just a part of total energy, okay? And this is produced by Ember. I don't think UPSC is going to ask the name of this body, but had it been Global Energy Review, then that would have been very important. So which body? The name energy reveals it. It's International Energy Agency, okay? So the report provides a comprehensive overview of global and country level electricity generation. Very bulky report. You just need to focus on the global status and what is India doing. Highlights that clean energy is increasingly meeting electricity demand growth. Clean energy meets rising global electricity demand. Very generic points. Solar meets 75% of the demand growth. Demand growth means the additional demand of that 75% comes from solar, not the total. Okay, totally if you look at whatever installed capacity has been there, of that solar power percentage is very low. But additional, for example, we had 100 units of installed capacity or power generation, actual power generation say. Now we are producing 10 units extra. Of that extra 10 units, 75%, that means 7.5 units is coming from solar power. Good enough, okay? Renewables reach 33.8%. This is of the total energy mix, and it has surpassed coal share. Globally, we're doing really well. Fossil power generation declines marginally globally. China dominates global solar capacity additions. Okay, and India is also really doing well when it comes to solar and wind power because of the schemes like PM Surya scheme, rooftop solar. Okay, so India's performance, India fossil generation declines by 3.3%. Okay. This you can mention as a remedy or measure taken by the Indian government. Okay, we have already experienced a decline in fossil power generation. Indian renewable generation grows by 24%. It's annual growth, I believe. Solar overtakes hydropower as largest source. India installs record 38 gigawatt solar capacity in 1 year, and India and China halt global fossil growth. Why? It is very natural. The nation that are leading in terms of generating electricity from fossil fuels, they have to put in additional measures. So that is why it has halted, because the major powers that are consuming coal, they have taken some measures or remedies, okay? And they're supposed to take more measures. Not United States, which is using only 16% coal generated electricity. And what are the reasons for clean energy growth? Earlier, the installation charges for solar panels, it was very high. Now the government is offering subsidies. We have schemes like PM Surya. That is why it is giving some boost. Or PM Kusum, using solar powered water pumps. PM Kusum, okay. Several schemes. Solar prices dropped 90% since 2015, a decadal decline. Solar generation rises 636 terawatts globally. 636, which is a big number. 636 into 10 to the power 3 gigawatts. Battery deployment rises 46% and battery prices fall 45%. So these are the key. You don't need to memorize all the figures. It's impossible. Okay, just try to focus on the India specific points. 3.3% is drop. It's very important. And annual installation for boosting solar capacity 38 gigawatts. It's very important. Okay. And the remaining 5 points about Indian Panchamrit, I hope you all remember. Okay. Like 500 gigawatts by 2030 from non-fossil sources. Now the second main news is about outer space governance. Now this is important from the point of view of, I would say, international relations. Okay. It's not related to space mission, science and tech. It's about the outer space treaty. Because if you remember, during the Cold War era, there was no actual war, but there was this ongoing conflict. Okay. There was no physical combat between the two nations, USA and USSR. Okay. USA and USSR, there was this space race, because USSR led the space race, but USA, which was lagging initially, it also tried to catch up with USSR. So USSR sent the first space mission, but United States was the first country to send human beings to the surface of moon. Okay. So now the space race has resumed, especially after this Artemis 2 mission, which involves a flyby across the moon. Okay, because the next missions are going to be manned missions. Okay, this time manned missions, because human beings are again going to set foot on the surface of the moon. But Artemis 2 has reignited that space war. Okay, many countries are showing concern because now the global space research scenario has changed. Now there are private players involved. Okay, earlier during the Cold War era, only the sovereign agencies like NASA, ISRO, okay, these were involved. Now you have private players like Virgin Galactic, okay, Blue Origin, and SpaceX, the most important. Okay, so now the scenario has changed. Now countries are showing concern because other countries like the United States are leading such missions, and they may earmark their own regions on these celestial bodies like the moon or the Mars. Okay, so taking into consideration the new developments, a need is felt to have a more comprehensive treaty. Okay, so that private players can also follow some international rules and standards, because in the new form of warfare, apart from the digital warfare, space can also be used as a region or a ground or an arena. Okay, so that's why there is a concern that we need to come up with a new treaty. So the recent context, as I mentioned, is Artemis 2 mission to moon and related space race, which have reignited the debate around the outer space governance. Okay, so mostly here we'll go through these points. But the most important things about those 3 important treaties, which are currently existing treaties, which you have to remember if a question ever comes on international space governance. So rising need for multilateral outer space governance, existing frameworks lack private sector regulations. I mentioned this. Okay, weak enforcement mechanisms in current space laws. Okay, see, global treaties are rarely followed. Now you can see there is this growing protectionism. Important countries are leaving, the United States is leaving most of the important bodies. Okay, it is no more a member of the WHO. Okay, and several important bodies are dominated by the major powers. United Nations Security Council, it consists of only 5 permanent members. Okay, that means there is lack of, what you can say, proportional power division. Artemis safety zones may restrict resource access, because if some minerals are extracted from the moon, okay, which is not very far-fetched, then the early goers or the early reachers will have that edge. Early nations may control lunar resources. Okay, the early bird catches the worm. Dual-use technologies increase militarization of risks. Okay, because once you have dual-use technologies, means technology which can be used for research, space missions, and also as missiles. Civilian use and military use. Strategic distrust rising among major space powers, shift from exploration to sustained space presence. Now, International Space Station is one such example. Okay, there astronauts can fly around. So these are not temporary missions going and coming back. People are planning to stay there for a longer period of time. So the current governance is more important because this is something which can be asked in the prelims also. Outer Space Treaty, which India has ratified. This is the most important treaty, and it says that space is one of the global commons. Just like open sea. ये किसी एक इंडिविजुअल का नहीं है. Atmosphere not right above your country, but for example, whenever satellites are launched, they fly around. Okay, of course you have to take some permission if the launching station is close to some other country. Okay, but again, these are global commons. Space, open sea. Okay, at least for space and open sea, these you have to mention. Atmosphere may be controversial because it depends upon the layer of the atmosphere. Space and open sea. Okay, treaty under United Nations Space Framework. Then COPUOS, this is another committee on open space, which is again backed by the United Nations General Assembly in 1959. It's a committee. India is also a founding member of COPUOS. Artemis Accords is specially related to the moon, and it is the most recent agreement in 2020, if I'm not wrong. Okay, US-led agreement for responsible lunar activities promotes transparency and interoperability in mission. That means if you're going to collect data related to the moon, there should be transparency in data collection and data sharing. 62 countries signed, including India. Okay, so all the three treaties or accords have been signed by India. Prelims में पूछा सकता, which of the following treaties have not been signed by India? So none, because all have been signed. In 2016, a question came related to Mangalyaan. That time it was in the news. I think 2 years before that it reached designated orbit. So Mangalyaan, launched by ISRO, is also called the Mars Orbiter Mission. See, such a simple statement. These days you won't see such questions, but still, who knows? 1 or 2 questions may be asked. Made India the second country to have a spacecraft orbit the Mars after the United States. Second, of course, it's not true because Russia and European Space Agency, they were already there. China and Japan had made efforts, but they failed. So India was definitely not the second country. So second statement is incorrect. This one is gone. This one is gone. Let's see the third statement. Made India the only country to be successful in making its spacecraft orbit the Mars in its very first attempt. Yes, this was something very special about the Mars Orbiter Mission or Mangalyaan. That's why option C is the correct answer. Okay. Several questions have been asked, but I don't have enough space. 10 to 12 questions. Okay. Let's discuss one of the old questions and one of the freshest question. Consider the following space missions, not space missions. Okay. Axiom 4, SpaceX, Gaganyaan. How many of the space missions given above encouraged and supported microgravity research? Microgravity research means you create such a condition in which there is zero or negligible gravity. Okay, and that can only happen when a spacecraft is far away from the Earth. So no matter what the mission is, most of the missions, they also either primarily conduct experiments related to microgravity, or because they're far away from the surface of the Earth and resources have been utilized, so why not to conduct some microgravity experiments? That is why Axiom 4 तो किया ही किया था. It was a manned mission. SpaceX was a docking mission, fitting to different artificial satellites, okay, or spacecrafts. But it also, primarily it was a docking mission. But because it was far away from the Earth, so why not to conduct micro experiment? It's like going to the market to buy something and not purchasing a very common product or common, commodity. Okay, so that's why primarily it was a docking mission, but it was also involved in microgravity experiments. So this is correct. Gaganyaan, this is also correct. Okay, so it also focuses on that. So all the three will be the answer. Option C again. Gaganyaan is a manned mission, is about to take place. India's agricultural production and buffer situation. This is also a very comprehensive topic from the point of view of covering agriculture. Again, you will have 5 to 6 important points that you can easily memorize to add good points to your mains answer. Okay, so this is just a normal report, it has been released, and as per that, India's buffer stock has been 3 times the prescribed limit. And why do we have buffer stocks? Buffer means to have some additional storage. Okay, whatever we're going to consume now or maybe after a few weeks, and let's store some of the food grains for exigencies or urgencies. Okay, we never know what can happen. So taking that into consideration, we have to ensure food security. And India has done really well. Okay, I think the buffer stock limit was somewhere around 200 lakh metric tons, and India has close to 600 lakh metric tons, combining both rice and wheat. Let's go through the precise facts. We'll also go through the important facts related to India's agricultural production and export, not just buffer stocking. Okay, for example, India is the largest producer of rice now, as per the Union Agricultural Minister. Although as per reports, it is showing that, as per many reports, it's number 2, but Union Agriculture Minister said that India is at number 1. Okay, there are many such important facts which we'll go through. India's food grain stock has been 3 times. So if it's 602, you can say that 200 होना चाहिए था, 200 का 3 हो गया 600. Okay. Total wheat stock is around 222 and rice stock is 380. It can also be a potential prelim statement कि buffer stock, rice buffer stock is higher than wheat buffer stock in India. Of course, it's true. Okay, because rice is the most important staple food grain in the whole of the country. Although in the northern part of India, it's wheat which is the staple food grain. Agricultural exports rise to US $51.1 billion. This is a very important fact. Okay, because we have also become the largest rice exporter. I think earlier it was one of the Southeast Asian nations. The question was asked, but after this basmati and non-basmati, we are exporting both. The largest rice exporter, India. When it comes to pulses, we are the largest producer, largest consumer, and the largest importer. That means whatever we produce, it's huge, but still not able to meet the domestic demands. That's why we have to import. We'll come across that. Horticultural production reached 362.08 million tons. Here you have to be careful. It's not storage. I said as per the report, the data or information I actually mixed. These 2 points were related to buffer stocking. All that you produce is not stocked or stored. Okay, most of it is consumed, and very few of the food grains are stocked, taking into consideration any future exigencies. This point is about how much horticultural products were produced in India, and it is in million metric tons, 362, and it has been higher than the total food grain production. Total food grain production, I failed to mention it here, it's close to 357 million metric tons. And this is in the fiscal year 2024-25. Okay, this much food grains were produced. We're waiting for the next fiscal year's report. Okay, it takes some time to gather data. Okay, so 357 ho gaya food grains, wheat and rice, but 362 ho gaya horticulture. That means vegetables and fruits. Okay, so this is a good point. Even if you don't remember the figures, at least you can say horticultural production surpassed food grain production. Next, India is the largest producer of pulses and millets. Okay, India is the largest importer of pulses and consumer of pulses also. Okay, not exporter. Producer, consumer, and producer, largest. Okay, largest producer, largest consumer, and largest importer of pulses. We import pulses from Australia and Canada or many other countries and some African nations also. Leading producer of fruits and vegetables globally, largest producer of horticultural products, first in spices and coconut production. This question appeared in Abhyas Vision IS. So, okay, before that it was Indonesia, but now we are the leading producer. Union Finance Minister mentioned it in the budget speech, and there are many articles in PIB also. We are second in sugarcane, number one is Brazil, and cotton and tea also we are at number 2. Here the number 1 producer is China. Okay, you don't need to remember. About buffer stock. Buffer stock means government stored food grains maintained for supply, stability and emergencies. Norms decided by Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. This is very important. Who decides it? Not Department of Agriculture. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Why? Because it involves large amounts of money. Okay, because in India, food grains are sold at a high price. Procured at a high price just to benefit the farmers, and sold at a low price just to benefit the ultimate consumers, most of which are farmers. For price stabilization, prevent sharp rise or fall in food prices. Whenever there is such a situation, the government will increase the flow of grains into the market. That's why buffer stocks are mentioned. Okay, maintained. A question came related to MSP, not exactly buffer stocking, but close one and very interesting. Consider the following products. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has announced the minimum support price for which of the above. See, in India, MSP is announced for 22 crops and fair remunerative price for sugarcane. Okay, this is a classic example of option elimination. Very easy. First of all, this is the most catchy crop, coffee. In coffee, there is no MSP. So wherever there is option 3, you have to eliminate that. Not true, not true, not true. This is the correct answer. That holds true for areca nut also. There is no MSP. Okay, for millets it's there, for groundnut it's there, for turmeric, not for sesamum. Not for turmeric. For sesamum it's there. Okay. So coffee, even if you have no idea about the other crops, coffee is a luxury product. Okay. It's not an essential food commodity. Now let's go through the quick updates. Okay, they won't take much time. The first one is about this e-mandate which RBI has introduced. Okay. Now for every transaction you have to share an OTP. And if some of you have availed the services of online streamers like Netflix or Amazon, then there is this provision of e-mandate. Once you give the mandate, that amount will be deducted from your account periodically, especially monthly. Okay. Now the RBI said you don't need to share any OTP. Okay. These are small amounts. For bigger amounts, you're supposed to share OTP. But now the RBI has set the upper limit. Till 15,000 rupees. For example, if you have availed the service of, say, some other company and the amount is 14,999 per month. Only one time registration is required. You'll receive an OTP. And once you give the e-mandate, it will be automatically deducted unless and until you stop it. That means no new OTPs will be required. That is the most important rule. I don't know whether UPSC is going to ask this question. But yes, how RBI is promoting digital economy, it can be mentioned as one of the important points. One time e-mandate is required. After that, no requirement. And 15,000 cap. If it's 15,001 rupees, say Netflix or some other company like Netflix, then there will be an OTP for every monthly transaction. Okay. But for some companies like insurance and mutual funds, it is 1 lakh, up to 1 lakh, or credit cards. Okay. For example, you're going to pay back, and the credit card company or bank may deduct a sum of, say, 16,000 rupees, no OTP required. 80,000 rupees, no OTP required. But if it's above 1 lakh, then you may need an OTP. Applies to UPI, cross-border payments, and additional factor authentication. This is an important term. The most important factor is your card details or your account details. The next one is either PIN or OTP or some facial recognition system. Okay. These features are called additional factor authentication. The most important one is a bank account number. If you have that one, that much is not enough. Anybody can have it. Okay. So that's why the next level is required. Sometimes it's 2-stage or 3-stage. 2 pins are required. First is your phone security password. Then once you enter or start using the app, to complete the transaction, you need 1 more. Okay. This is for normal transactions. And these are for recurring transactions. Okay. Whatever I said is for recurring transactions, recurring payments, not for one-time payments. Abhi to fir bhi pin chahiye. See, you give mandate only for recurring transactions. Okay, take as much money from my account so far as I'm using your services. Okay, that is what giving mandate means. Okay. Next one is about not a good piece of news. Two Indian landfills, one in Maharashtra and the other in Telangana, they featured among the top 25 polluting or methane emitting landfills. You know what landfills are? These are the places where organic wastes are decomposed in oxygen deficit, no oxygen, oxygen deficit conditions. So it's called anaerobic. Anaerobic. Okay. So whenever methane gas comes out from landfills, you need to have properly scientifically designed systems. You need to be in a position to capture the excess CHO4 and it can be reused. But many landfills in India are not scientifically designed. That's why the methane emitted is not captured. And two such landfills are the largest emitters. This is as per the satellite imagery captured. Okay. So methane is a greenhouse gas and it's more potent than your CO2. It is 28 times more potent than CO2. Okay. That much. There is nothing else about the news. So India, many cities of India, they feature among the top 10 air polluting cities. And this is another such bad piece of news. NASA's Curiosity rover, which discovers new organic molecules on Mars. So on a weekly basis or on a daily basis also, many data are sent by such rovers. Okay. Only when something significant happens, it becomes a part of the headlines. Okay. So organic molecules, of course, that means it contains carbon and hydrogen. So carbon and hydrogen and maybe nitrogen. Okay. These are the essential elements found in your organic molecules, organic compounds. So that means Martian surface or Martian atmosphere must have been habitable some time ago. We really cannot be we cannot precisely determine as to when it was habitable. It shows that once upon a time it must have been habitable. But finding or discovering organic molecules is not sufficient evidence to say that life survived. We can only conclude or deduce that once upon a time Mars was habitable. Okay, now, that is what many experts say. You don't immediately believe that organic molecules meant life existed. Okay, it simply means that Mars was habitable. Okay, so Curiosity rover, this is the rover which was launched in 2011, I guess. Sorry, 2011, and it reached the Martian surface in 2012 by NASA. It moves around, a rover moves around the surface of a planet or a celestial body, and it gathers data by studying soil samples. Okay, organic compounds are building blocks of life. Does not confirm life, but suggests habitability. This is the most important point. Okay. It studies Martian geology, which the Curiosity rover, climate and habitability. Okay. River Salween, which is a river that flows through China, Myanmar and Thailand, it shows some arsenic contamination. And this is because of geological leaching, not anthropogenic influx. Not anthropogenic. Okay. It's mostly geological in nature. That means certain minerals, they contain arsenic. When water flows, the nearby land masses which have arsenic gets leached away from that and it gets mixed with the river water. And Salween is the longest undammed river. There are no dams on this river. Sorry, the longest undammed river. I'm sorry. The longest undammed river in Asia. Which is the longest river? That is Yangtze. That again flows through China. But this is the longest undammed river. Okay, there are no dams. Arsenic, so its flow is uninterrupted. Arsenic contamination detected in river system. Natural leaching from arsenic rich rocks, major cause. As I said, it's not anthropogenic in nature. The cause is absolutely natural. Mining and deforestation worsen contamination. Arsenic poses serious human health risks. And in India, especially in the Ganga Brahmaputra river system, the nearby areas are suffering from this problem. Okay, and it can also, it is carcinogenic, it can cause cancer if taken in high doses. Google mark Earth Day 2026 with a special doodle. The only thing you need to remember is we observe Earth Day on April 22nd every year. And we have been doing this since 1970. The reason is to remind all of us that Earth is very important, it is our only home, and we need to respect and use its natural resources in a judicious manner. That's it. Okay. And we celebrate or observe World Environment Day on June 5. This is World Earth Day. Okay. So happy Earth Day. Now let's move to the next news. Be responsible citizens of the globe. The next one is the Tadoba Andhari model. So this model is about a tiger reserve model which has been successful, so it can be replicated in other tiger reserves. Okay, that much you need to know. Why? Because it successfully managed the conflict between wildlife and human beings. Although there have been certain criticism related to its disproportionate focus on the wildlife side. That means in a bid to protect and further the population of tigers, it in a way compromised the lives of people and their livelihoods. But overall it has been a successful model. Okay, because the tiger population has grown. And the same can be replicated in many other tiger reserves. As of now, there are 58 tiger reserves, and Madhya Pradesh has the highest number of tiger reserves, which is 9. The largest tiger reserve is, UPSC asked this, the core tiger area, sorry, the core area, and it was Nagarjun Sagar Srisalam Tiger Reserve in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Okay, it's a transboundary tiger reserve. And the smallest one is Bor Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra. Okay, so remember the largest tiger reserve's name. The first tiger reserve in India is Jim Corbett in Uttarakhand, and maximum number of tiger reserves are in Madhya Pradesh. This one is in Maharashtra. Okay. Supreme Court directs plan for making prisons disabled friendly. Okay. Now there is a prison committee. There was a committee which is appointed to improve the lives of the imprisoned people or the jailmates. Now similar committees can be set up, or a high body panel can be set up to improve the lives of the disabled inmates. Okay, because prisons, as you know, in India, they're in very poor conditions. Okay, there have been several suggestions about creating more open prisons also, and about this under trial issue. Okay, because most of the inmates in India are under trials. So this is a related but slightly different issue, and this directive that came from the Supreme Court is about making prison conditions disabled friendly, because, and so it immediately stems from Article 14. Okay, equality before law and right to life. Okay, these are two important articles involved. So there is this committee called Bhatt Committee. I think he was one of the previous or old retired judges of the Supreme Court. So that committee focuses on improving the conditions of the prison. A similar committee can be set up for taking into consideration the fact that prisons have to be made disabled friendly. Okay, that's it. Homage to Adi Shankaracharya. So Adi Shankaracharya, often we read about him. It's important from the point of view both ancient India and art and culture. Okay, because the Advaita Vedanta philosophy was propounded by him, and exact dates have not been known, but it's slightly late ancient. Okay, late ancient. And recently, Honorable Prime Minister of India paid tribute to Adi Shankaracharya. The Advaita Vedanta philosophy, which said that Advait, Dvait means dual, Advait means singular or non-dual. So the name is very suggestive, it's very clear. It propounds the idea of non-dualism. That means it says that every human being or living entity has a soul. Okay, it's called Atman, and it blends well with what we call Brahman, the universal consciousness. These are very deep theories. You just need to know the propounder of Advaita Vedanta was Adi Shankaracharya. You know it really well. And then there was a special type of uh, Advait philosophy. It's called Vishishta Advait. It was propounded by Ramanuja. And the difference lay between seeing Brahman as Sagun or Nirgun. Okay, that was the only difference. So Adi Shankara Acharya actually established several mutts. Okay, several mutts across the entire country, especially north, south, east, west. So in the north, Shankaracharya Mutt is actually situated in your Joshi Mutt, close to Badrinath. In the south, this one is the north. Okay, we call Chardham of India. There are separate Chardhams in Uttarakhand. Okay, for example, Gangotri, Yamunotri, Badrinath, and Kedarnath. These are the Chardham of Uttarakhand. But here we are talking about Chardham of India. Joshimath, Sringeri in Karnataka, that is south. In east it is Puri, Jagannath Dham, east. And in the west it's west में हो गया द्वारका in Gujarat. Okay. East में it is Puri in Odisha. नॉर्थ में हो गया आपका जोशीमठ, उत्तराखंड, एंड साउथ में श्रृंगेरी, कर्नाटका, close to Chikmagalur. Many people say Rameshwaram, it's not Rameshwaram, it's Sringeri. Okay. So next news is about India's palm oil import demand, which is likely to rise because of global constraints and because, of course, demand has always been high because this is the most commonly consumed edible oil in India, palm oil. And we import palm oil from two important Southeast Asian countries, which are Indonesia and Malaysia. Okay. So they have been the primary suppliers, and India is world's largest importer of both edible oil and palm oil, accounting for 20% of the global imports. Again, agricultural facts. Okay. So due to some strained relationship between India and Malaysia, India had reduced its dependence, but now again I think they have resumed. Okay. So these are the two countries from which India imports its palm oil. And palm oil, don't get confused between crude oil. Crude oil is of petroleum origin, okay, but palm oil is edible oil. But in a way, we can say crude oil prices have affected palm oil prices because there's this continuous chain and this domino effect. Okay, because of this, there has been a 5 to 10% price rise in palm oil import. Okay, so palm oil import price is also going to rise. So that will affect our current account deficit. Now the next news is about government's ammonia related regulations. So here the focus is this may be temporary regulation because of the Strait of Hormuz issue, and ammonia is used both in manufacturing fertilizer, okay, and also diammonium phosphate ho gaya, and also making medicines, okay, pharmaceuticals. So now if you're going to use ammonia for manufacturing fertilizers, definitely the amount available for manufacturing pharmaceuticals will come down. Okay, that means there will be less availability, but the demand for medicines will remain the same. So there will be price rise. So this concern has been shown by many pharmaceutical companies. Okay, and India imports most of its ammonia, and it comes from India also imports most of its fertilizer, and it comes from the Middle East countries. Okay, because the situation, as you know, it's very volatile. So India is going to channelize whatever ammonia it has towards fertilizer manufacturing. So this is the news. This is a temporary regulation. If the situation changes, again, whatever is being diverted for manufacturing of fertilizer will go back to the state of normalcy. That means pharmaceutical companies will not be hurt in the long run. This much we can expect. Okay, but currently it's going to be diverted for the manufacturing of fertilizers. Last quick update, it is related to this defense equipment, which is very important for clearing landmines. As you know, the tanks are very important to breach defense lines. You know, you must have seen tanks in military. Okay, they give you protection, at the same time they also give you this best strategy to move forward into enemy's territory. Okay. Now sometimes whenever they move, the territory is fixed with mines. If you move over that, you'll experience a blast. Okay. For that you need trawl. So trawls are actually fitted right in front of, I think it's related to track width plow, something like that. They're actually fitted in front of a mines, tanks. So this is the tank. They'll be fitted here like big plows, and they are resistant to blasts. They won't be blown away. They move forward and they remove the soil and they check for mines. Okay. So if the mines are there, they'll be pushed aside. So that will clear the paths for the combat vehicles. So India is going to indigenously manufacture. It will depend upon some MSME and 2-3 companies to indigenously manufacture trawls, which are very important for the clear paths for the movement of tanks. Okay. Otherwise, whoever is going to man the tanks, their life may be in danger. Okay. So T-72 and T-90 tanks के लिए we are going to invest 975 crore rupees for trawl systems. And these systems, the MSMEs are going to just manufacture many components. Okay. Components. Ultimately, it is designed and manufactured by DRDO. But the minute components are going to be manufactured by the MSME companies. Okay. So that's all about today's news. So as we always say, try to make the most of Visionized digital current affairs to enrich your answers and knowledge in current affairs. And now 6 questions will appear on your screen. Do take them. Wish you all the very best.